Okay, it's that time. Little show this week on what is this week? It's what is it? Florida, Georgia. Yes, it is Florida Georgia weekend. We got Pastor Ben Troupe on a special occasion tonight, who's coming in to give us his little pep talk. You always want Ben Troupe talking on Florida, Georgia, and we got that. So stay tuned. It's coming your way tonight. We'll hear, of course, from the regular crowd. That meaning Franz Beard and Lauren Meadows. It's Gator time again, folks. It's talk show time again. It's Buddy Martin show. It's Florida Georgia week. It's the Orange and Blue Bloods. Here we come.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. The program is heard 5 days or nights a week. Tomorrow, Urban Meyer will be here with the best Fridays in football. This is one of our favorite shows because it gives us a chance to talk intimately with our followers. We take off the shield of objectivity and we talk about being a fan. We'd like for you folks to weigh in on talk about things that you normally might not hear on some shows. Last night was special. If you missed it, Steve Spurrier, 20 minutes sitting down talking about how he was the Bulldog slayer, how he did what he did. You'll hear us talking about it tonight with Ben. One of the unbelievable beatdowns of a coach in a rivalry to play them 12 times at Florida and beat them 11 times. The story's been told many times, but you never get tired of it. I was telling my good friend Randy tonight, who's been a long time Gator fan, about this being one of the more remarkable things to happen in sports. And Randy, who follows Florida football very closely, hadn't really thought about the fact that in 12 games, Steve Spurrier beat what is now the number one college program 11 times. 11 times. I know you know it, but think about it. I think my friend Randy said, that makes me really proud. I want to put on a Spurrier jersey and go up there and root for the Gators. You should, because he certainly is the reason that this series got somewhat even. And we'll say good evening to everybody here tonight. Frank Almina, good to hear from you again, buddy. Hope you're doing well. JD Wolf, chomp to you. Michael Burton, the loyal Michael Burton, he says, I really would like both Ben, helping to block. Oh, yeah, Ben on the old line. Yeah, exactly. And Coach Meadows, two good guys. Yeah. All right, so Becky Smith, Carlisle, good to see you again. Where you been? Perry Mason, always here. Good to hear from you. Toby, permanent, the champion of trivia. And Lonnie Garden is weighing in tonight, along with Tommy Seal. Also, HE15 Mangator. I don't know you. Good to have you on the show. So I know my friend Tyler Ford's on here too at nighttime. So anyway, we've got lots to talk about tonight. I'm going to let you think about this for a minute. I'm going to play another bite in a minute of what Spurrier said about this Georgia series. But first up is our colleague and a guy who is, if there was a Mr. Two Bits of this show, it would be Ben Troupe, especially on Thursday nights, because he gets after it. He tells you how he feels. He makes no apologies for being a Gator or for rooting for the Gators. And remember, Ben was a great fan. He never lost to Georgia in 4 years. Never lost. And he lives in Georgia. You think that's not sweet? And Ben, of course, is also in the Florida Georgia Hall of Fame. So distinguished guy that he is. So we're going to hear from our sponsor here in just a second. If I can do it right now. And then we'll go right into the show tonight. It's going to be a good one. Ben Troupe preaching his sermon. The Iron Duke, Franz Beard, always good to get him this week. and of course, host Lauren Meadows. So, good evening to you, David Baldoff and David Myers. Don't forget, folks, support our sponsors. They make these shows possible. Among them is TitanMRI.com. They're worth the short drive to Gainesville. They require no insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card. How many places can you do that? With same-day scheduling in advance. Start feeling better today because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location for Ocala, Marion County, and the Villages. That's TitanMRI.com. Thank you for sponsoring us. Okay, let's get right into it. Let's get your thoughts, too. I see you're popping on there and get your thoughts about this weekend. I mean, look, we can dream all we want to. The reality is that Georgia's a 14-point favorite. I've said this all week long. Before you can ever win a big game, you have to believe you can and trust that you can. Ben talks about that tonight beautifully. Let's go hear from Ben Troupe, Pastor Ben Troupe, and what he says about Florida, Georgia. Well, last night during the show, people said, let's get Ben Troupe on here and get all fired up about this Georgia game. He brings it every time he's on the program. Welcome back tonight to Orange Blue Buds. Ben, what do I say? I just say Florida, Georgia, and turn it over to you.
Hey, Florida, Georgia, buddy, I think it's all in the name. It's something me and you said, though, all the time. Florida and Georgia is always better when Florida and Georgia are both relevant, right? You know what the game is. And the game speaks for itself with the tradition and the pageantry. But, you know, Georgia being undefeated, Florida coming in 5-2, understanding that they still got a lot to play for. Carson Beck being a Jacksonville native, you know, coming back home. He finally gets to do his best Stetson Bennett impersonation, but I'm looking forward to it. I think when it comes to games like this, I know we always use the past to give us like a present way of looking at things, but Georgia, Kirby Smart and Georgia understand that no matter what they do, the same way we said before the season, the barometer is in Jacksonville. Like how we look, Georgia says the same thing because the last thing Kirby Smart the last time Georgia lost in the regular season, Florida beat them. Now, we didn't think it was going to be 2 years later for them to not lose a game, but I just think that Georgia brings out the best in Florida. Florida, you know, look forward to bringing out the best in Georgia, but I'm looking forward to the game, buddy. 3:30 last Saturday in October, and I was blessed enough to be a part of the only night game. I don't think Georgia wants to revisit those days.
Huh, interesting. Well, speaking of not revisiting, I had a nice long interview with Coach Steve Spurrier this week. It played a little bit on the show last night and probably will play some tonight. I'm trying to get down to, and you could speak to this because you played in the game. How is it you arrive at the conclusion and conviction that you can play with this team and go out and beat them? Because until you know you can beat them and think of it, you aren't going to beat them. And one man is a great example of that. The guy who came here in 1990 and said, well, don't play that game in Jacksonville. We can't win it, you know. He knew in his heart he could, and he did. If you could just get that message across to coaches and players, before you will do it, you have to believe you can do it, Ben. And really, Steve Spurrier had no basis for saying what he said. Let's play it. We can do it. And he did, and the rest is history. And arguably the greatest domination ever in a major rivalry by one coach and one team, Steve Spurrier.
I think you just said it, but I know people are gonna say, well, what did Buddy say? Mentality is one thing, belief is everything, right? Mentality is what you're working on. Belief is what that coach already had. Coach Spurrier said, look, they said, well, Coach, how would you know? I don't know. I think I played here one time. I think I won the Heisman here. I think I understand what this game means, not just to the SEC East, to the SEC as a whole, but
yeah, I think
as
that's
a whole.
true.
It was about Florida, Georgia.
Yeah, I think that's true. And the other thing, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, when you say believe, that's the hardest thing to do in life, isn't it? Like, think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Buddy Martin has this plan. I want to do my own. You know, I've been in media so long. I want to do my own thing. But when you started telling people, this is back when you first started, like, no, buddy, you can't do that. No, they're telling you they don't believe the way you believe.
Exactly right.
Spurrier came over from Duke, and they was thinking, dude, who is this? We know who he is as a player. We know what he's meant to the ACC as a coach. Can he do it here? Yep. And I'm going to do it the same way I've always done it, with my belief system. My belief system is through how I coach, the manner in which I coach, and I got to get these players. You don't believe me? Ask Shane Matthews, do he believe? Ask Danny Warford, do he believe? Ask Rex Grossman, do he? And when you get that many players doing that, they hard to beat. I'm not saying they can't be beat. I'm saying, not to give him any credit or credence, this might be Nick Saban's best year of coaching because he ain't got all these 5 stars. And he got a quarterback but he goes, hey, man, I get to show you what I can do when I don't have the players. Because when I do got the players, it's because he can recruit. But when I don't, and I've only lost 1 game, I think that's what this Florida-Georgia game is. And Coach Spurrier understood that, dude, every day I'm telling y'all what to do. Do you know what? That's a belief system. I'm trying to get you to believe in this thing. And let me say this. For those people who think Coach Spurrier talked about winning, I never heard him use the word win. I heard him talk about preparation. I heard him talk about the big bad Gators and the mighty Gators. But he always said that we play the way we prepare, we got a shot. That's all he ever said. Now, I don't know what he said to Danny and Shane and, Javon Curse and Fred Taylor and all them, but I was his last 2 years. And because of him, I got to win the SEC championship. Because of him, I got to see what the Florida-Georgia game was like. And because of him, he let me start. I don't know what the other 2 tight ends are doing, Kirk Wells and Aaron Walker, but he said, Benny, you starting on Saturday. And I'm like, now mind you, buddy, I wanted to hear those words, but I wasn't ready to hear them that early.
Kind of scary, yeah.
But I think with this, belief and trust, belief is what a coach want to put into a player. Trust is the only way a player is going to play. You're not going to play without those 2 words. Yeah. And like I said, Coach Spurrier, he did it at 3 different schools, though. Yeah. He did it at Duke. He did it at Florida. He did it at South Carolina. So don't give me this, he only did it. No, I did it. It worked. South Carolina has never seen that much winning since he left. 11-2, 11-2, 11-2. So the proof is in the belief system. Mm-hmm. Where does the belief system come from? One Stephen, I don't know what Coach Spurrier's middle name is. I'm not going to give him. I'm going to just call him Stephen.
It's Aura. Stephen Orr Spurrier.
Stephen Orr Spurrier. His aura, Stephen Aura Spurrier, has the belief system. And I think that's what Billy Napier and company are trying to instill.
That's what they need to have. That's what and I don't know how you get it. One of the important point here, I think, and as a player, you can identify with this. It's not just the winning that gets you there. Sometimes it's the losing. And Spurrier is a prime example because his senior year, Florida had a chance to realize the dream of all Gators to win the SEC. I was at that game. I sat down with the offensive coordinator the night before the game. He gave me the game plan, what he's going to do against Georgia. He said, we didn't know Ben Stanfield was going to tackle Larry Smith every time out of the backfield, or Jack Coon was going to get knocked down over the middle of the time. He didn't know, and they lost that game. And the second half was one of Steve's poorest halves of football. And that stuck in his craw. And he finally admitted it again in the interview last night was, yeah, I felt like I owed him something on that deal. I'm not sure I ever made it up. I'd say he made it up. 11-1, he more than made it up. So sometimes, Ben, talk about this as a competitor. Those disappointments you have, when you learn from them and you can build on them, they can motivate you more than the wins.
It does, and that's what losing gives you a reason to really go back and really prepare. Because you know how it is, buddy. When you're winning all the time, you preparing, but you preparing to not lose. Compared to when I lose, okay, practice is where I work on what I'm weak at. I shouldn't be over there. Hey, Ben, we saw you catch 250 passes. Did you see me working on my blocking? What? Mm-hmm. You might not see it on Saturday because, you notice me from what I do with the ball in my hand. But you also realize that's the difference in people say, what's the difference in running the ball on 3rd and 1 and going out and passing the ball on 3rd and 1? Tight end blocking on the tight ends blocking on the edge. Because what'll happen is they're gonna finally say, hey man, can you make a play without your number being called? So the losing helps you appreciate it, man. I mean, the great, I know, the great 50 Cent buddy said one time, he said, pleasure wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain. So without the pain of losing, I wouldn't have the pleasures of winning. I wouldn't enjoy it the same. But I guarantee you this. You ask any player, hey, man, what's the games you remember the most? The games I lost. Yeah. I can tell you them games way better than one. Because the ones we won, my individual play wasn't looked upon the same. But the games we lost, my individual play stood out. That's what Spurrier taught me that, hey, man, when you win, we don't really look at the mistakes the same because we won. But when we lose, they stand out like a sore thumb. And I think that's the thing is when Spurrier tell us, hey, man, if you're not going to be the reason we win, don't be the reason we lose. If you're not going to be the reason we win, do not be the – and that's the hardest part. So I will say that losing aspect of it,
stinks.
You know, it's when a young Buddy Martin wants to be in a journalist. He's working for, I don't know, the Gainesville Sun or the Tampa Tribune, and that editor says, you see this right here? I want you to write more like this. He ain't saying you wrote a bad, article. He's saying I want you to – and that's the part – but – If he wouldn't tell Buddy Martin to write that if he couldn't. You see, so I think it's a lot of ways to look at it, but the losing, because so much goes in it's not so much goes in the winning, so much goes in the preparing that when you lose, it's like, God, man, it's hard to give another team their respect and credit and credit when they beat you, but they've earned that. But that losing stuff, it's rough because you feel like you let your team down. Yeah, it's not the opponent. It's your teammates. Yeah. It's how hard though. There are guys on a football team in college, buddy. You know this. They'll never get out there. They know I ain't never gonna get out there on that green grass on Saturday. And they show you doing it for them. When them two young men, a week last week, Coach Napier gave out 2 scholarships. That's who you doing it for. Because these guys are paying to go to school, and they lifting, and they running, and they practicing, and they know they ain't gonna play. And they show, so it helps you appreciate it more. So yeah, Coach Spurrier, who didn't lose a lot, never spoke about winning, and he was all about preparation, and the proof was in the preparation.
Yeah, well said. And one more on Coach Spurrier. I don't want to live too much in the past. Then let's talk about Saturday's game and Billy Napier, what this could do for him. We know that is what's it like for Steve Spurrier to play for him? And he has this quote. He told me one time. He said. Quotes, I think it came from Sidney Harris, I'm not sure, or Sun Tzu. He said, when confronted by a difficult or impossible task, act like it's no big deal. You never saw him clutch up. He was laid back, calm, cool. And what did that do for the confidence of his players, Ben?
Look at it. Look at his records. Look at how many teams he did it with. Look at how many eras. He started in the 90s, and he ended up in the 2000s. He coached in 2 different eras, right?
Yeah.
And what Coach Spurrier was, man, he was consistently him. And I think that's what he was telling you. I want you to be you. I just want you to play like this. I want you to be you. But I need you to do this like this. And the greatest thing about Coach Spurrier was, like you said, he didn't flinch, man. He was the same every day. It didn't matter who we played. It didn't matter what the situation was, because in his mind, he goes, man, I take all the stress out of stuff because of who I go recruit. I'm not recruiting players that can't do what I ask. It's confusing to me when they can't do it. It's confusing because I know they have the ability, but Coach Spurrier said, man, are you coachable? Are you willing to do it the way I say do it? And if you're willing to do that, people need to look at how far down on the depth chart Shane Matthews was to see what he became.
6.
Think about it. 3rd string quarterbacks don't even get in. He's number 6. Look at what he became. And shout out to Shane Matthews getting honored at this year's SEC Championship game as a Georgia. Now he's a Georgia legend, recognized by the SEC, not just in games. So for me,
and you too are, by the way.
Listen, I will say this, buddy. Coach Spurrier did this. Coach Spurrier let me know this. It is his job to get me to do something I don't want to do in order to accomplish something I cannot without him. That's all. That's what he did. I'm not going to do it without him. He's making me do something I don't want to do. I don't want to get up at 5. I don't want to lift at 6. I don't want to do that. But when you start seeing the things you do, you go, that's a coach can see what no one else can see. He can see it. He'll go, okay, I can see what he has. Can I pull it out of him? And he ain't going to like my methods now. It's like, look, I mean, son, he ain't like all your methods growing up, buddy. But you birth him, not the other way around. So he can, like my daddy say, you can listen. You can be pissed off at me your whole life, and you can benefit from me the rest of your life. That Coach Spurrier, he has some great methodology, man. And like I said, whether it's in Duke, Florida, or even up there in Columbia, The proof is in the winning percentage. Go up in the College Football Hall of Fame. They got certain coaches painted on the wall. There's a certain Steve Spurrier that's on the wall. That's for a reason.
Yep, well said. All right, Billy Napier. The distance between the program has been this, and now maybe it's like this, a little closer. No one knows what's going to happen when Carson Beck can't find Brock Bowers on 3rd and 6. No one knows. I know they got other great players. I get it. Talks Tony Barnhart, Delp, whatever. These other guys, they got good players. But I don't care what you say. In the little bit of football I played, I knew on certain plays I'm looking for one guy. I need that 3rd and 8. I need that. I was going to go with my sure hand. My Sid Dosh is what I've got. My tight end. That's what I'm going to, because I knew he could catch the ball if I got it close to him. And you can't tell me that that's not going to impact Georgia's quarterback when the time comes. Now, I know they got other good players, but you got a guy who could get open almost any time and every time. So anyway, I just want to know your thoughts about that. I want to know also about, realistically, is there more than just a puncher's chance that Florida could win this football game?
To answer your first question, when your reliable source is gone, it's easy. Yeah, you got players, but you weren't looking for them when he was there. Now you're forced to look at him now that he's gone. Hopefully Florida can use that to their advantage and not make a player not named Brock Bowers look like Brock Bowers, on Saturday. A puncher's chance, no, man. They got as good as a shot as any. Because, buddy, not to compare Florida to any other team, but Georgia showed they can bleed. They didn't show a lot of weaknesses last year or definitely the year before. They didn't have a lot of weaknesses. Georgia can bleed. It's our job to make them bleed consistently. It's our job to hit them back. Because Georgia comes into a fight already blooded up, saying, look, man, this is what I look like from the last fight. But can Florida punch back for 4 quarters? Yeah,
that's the question. 4 quarters. That's really the issue. It's not just can they compete.
I think they can. They got a shot.
Yeah, they believe they can. So, So I was talking to Allie, by the way, who is becoming a star. I know you were on her show this week. Allie Pete Wilbur is one of the truly coming bright and shining stars coming on. I love having her on the show, and I know you've done a show with her, and she's so good at what she does because she understands the game, the feeling, the recruiting about this. But sooner or later, Georgia's going to lose. They got to lose at 24.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. How can I say this? Am I going to flick for it? No, I can't bring myself to do that logically because what are they now? 13, 14-point underdogs. They were 23-point underdogs. It's going the right way. I said to Allie, and I want you to comment on this, I don't believe in moral victories, but I do believe in progress. If this team plays competitively, gives Georgia a fight, that's progress, Ben, and that's something to build on.
Yeah, it's progress, buddy, but I look at progress a different way. I look at it like this. Buddy, I'm looking at body language, right? And I'm looking at 4th quarter. Body language in 4th quarter. Because the thing about Florida is, thank God they've won a lot of different ways this year. They've won ugly. They've won, in a dominant fashion. They've done it at home. They've done it on the road. They've done a lot of ways. Now is, can you stare college's barometer team in the face for 4 quarters? Can you pick each other up? Can you avoid mistakes, and can you overcome it? Because if you can avoid them, you don't got to overcome them. But if you do make them, you got to overcome them. Because that's football, right? I mean, I went 4-0 against Georgia. It's not like we dominate them every time we beat them. It was a literally dog fight, no pun intended, for 4 games. But we was able to close. From 2000 to 2003, different cast of characters, different coaches, but same result. So I think, do Florida have a puncher's chance? Yes. What do Florida got to be? Themselves. Don't come in there trying to be somebody different. Run the football. Use the run to open up for the pass. Coach Armstrong, be aggressive. We got more freshmen starting in college football than anybody in college football. Who cares? Like you said, buddy, you ain't no freshman. No. Take your behind out there and let's see. Because you want to know what it's like to play them? This is what it's like. See, now all that talking goes away. All that, they ain't that good. Let's see. Let's see what they not. Let's see what you are. Because there ain't gonna be no in between. But I like Florida's chances because I just seen the growth in 7 games. They've grown in 7 games. They've grown.
Yeah.
Graham Mertz, man, be who you are. I know this was supposed to be the homecoming for Carson Beck and all this, that, and the third. Jacksonville native, whatever. Congratulations to him. But I think for this Florida team, now they learning how to win from Billy. Now they want to win for him. They learning how to do it through him. Now they want to win for him. And I think that hopefully we'll see that on Saturday because like I say, buddy, what does it do for the rest of the year for a program moving forward to get a W against some dogs? Oh, my God. I mean, and it's been like that since
everything.
It's been going on. Since been going on.
Everything. And I'll speak to this last thing. You played the game. I've seen lots and lots of games. I mean, I've seen I hate to say how many Florida Georgia games I've seen, probably 60, 65. But the point is, I know this feeling, and I've been there in the stadium. I've seen it from afar. This is Halloween weekend. Something changes in Jacksonville Halloween weekend. And I don't want to say it's evil spirits, but stuff happens that doesn't usually happen. Bizarre things can happen, and usually not to the team that's the favorite. Usually the team that is favored is the one that's happening to. I mean, look, there's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Next thing you know, Georgia may all of a sudden not have its composure, make a turnover. The game can be there for the taking in the fourth quarter if they play good enough defense and don't turn the ball over. They got a real good shot here, Ben.
Yes, they got a great shot. Look, I'm finna get ready to get out of here, but for Florida fans, I want y'all to remember this. Treon Harris is undefeated against Florida, Georgia. Treon Harris.
Yeah.
Right? And we didn't, and listen, they wouldn't even let him throw the ball. Remember that, buddy?
Yeah.
Nope. And we won. Why? Because we got behind Kevin Taylor, the son, of Fred Taylor, that two-headed monster at running back. But then, the thing about this Florida game is 2002 at night, I was there. Taylor Jacobs get hurt in the first quarter. We got to do a smoke screen, win the game. See, once again, this is about winning the game, not how it looks. Win
the game. I hear you.
Fact of the matter is, so get that dub, man. And, buddy, a lot of these older Georgia players like myself now, they living in today's Georgia players. They don't know nothing about winning in this game. When this game comes up, it brings up real bad memories. Yeah. They're like, man, we didn't win a lot in this game. So all I'm saying is, you get a chance to introduce yourself to the world on Saturday. The whole world's going to be watching at 3:30. Whether they admit it or not, they're going to be watching. They're going to be watching for 2 reasons. Is Georgia that good, or is Florida one of those teams that can beat? It's a level of intrigue that I'm looking forward to. And like I said, buddy, I appreciate the University of Georgia, man. They gave me a shot to have my coming out party in 2002. So I'm not negating that fact. I'm not running away from that fact. But like I said, when your number's called, do it for your squad. Forget you. Do it for them and watch how much better of a player it makes you. I'm looking forward to it. Billy Napier is the guy. But being the guy ain't gonna be enough to win the game. The players control between them lines. The coaches control the game plan. Let's come together 3:30 on Saturday. Let's see what happens. Because like I said, ask Carson Beck, who didn't grow up a Georgia fan, probably grew up a Florida fan, how this series used to go. Yeah. He's from Jacksonville. He know how it is.
He knows it.
He knows how dangerous them Florida guys can be. Let's be dangerous on Saturday and let's see what happens.
The great Ben Troupe, Hall of Famer himself. Great stuff as usual, Pastor Troupe. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, buddy.
All right. All right, Ben Troupe bringing it like he always does, especially this week. If you're a Gator fan, you can't get fired up for that. I feel sorry for you. All right. Quick message from Meldon Law. Aaron Duke's supposed to be joining us momentarily. Jeffrey Meldon. Jeffrey, you do a show where you ask a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it? In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know, because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach us through. So, Meldon Law, where you matter most, they won't back down. Here's a guy who won't back down. Every week he writes this column. Every year he writes this column, why he hates Georgia. I understand. A lot of people do. Francis Spurrier, there are some good things about the state of Georgia. The Masters being one, My mama was born and raised in Georgia. Girl I care about a lot is in Georgia. There are some good things. You just can't think of any, can't you, friends?
Well, I can think of Savannah as a good thing. I've lived in Savannah, and I love Savannah. To have one of the most beautiful places on the planet in the middle of this really disgusting area of Augusta, Georgia, it just goes to show you God has a great sense of humor. Cloudland Canyon up in Lefevre, Georgia is another place. It's and Unicoi State Park, another one that's really, really nice. And of course, we've gotten some pretty good football players out of the state of Georgia. The first one that I really recall was a guy named Bruce Bennett, who was
the quarterback.
Came to Florida. A quarterback, played for Wright Bazemore. And one of the cool things about him is, and he died not all that long ago. It was sad day for Gators. But the night before the state championship game, there was a kitchen fire and a grease fire in a frying pan. And he went in there with a bare hand and reached there, grabbed the frying pan and threw it out the door. He had blisters all over his hand. He played the state championship game and was the MVP in the state championship game the next night, playing with a bandaged hand for Wright Bazemore. One of the great, great stories. Mm-hmm. And what a great football player for the Gators. I mean, he's a guy that even when I was very young when he was playing, I was like 13 years old, 12, 13, something like that. A guy that just didn't make mistakes.
Smart quarterback on the defense.
Yeah.
Hit hard.
Right,
safety too.
Wright Bazemore always, till the day he died, said Bruce Bennett was one of the smartest, if not the smartest football player he ever had.
Interesting, yeah.
And Wright Bazemore would have known.
Yes, he would have. Many great football players. Well, we're here again. I just heard Pastor Ben Troupe preaching tonight. He's always in fine voice this week. It's much the same as we would expect. And I think, we can talk it all we want to talk it, but something has to happen on Monday. I have a little bite for you from Coach Spurrier, because we had this discussion the night before last about running the football versus passing a football. And so I said to you, you said they got to run the ball. I was thinking they got to pass the ball. And so I asked Coach Spurrier about it. Not necessarily that he went on my side. Here's what Coach Spurrier said about playing Georgia and throwing the football and running the football. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Billy's bite is in here too, so I don't think he want Billy to come in here. So let's see if we get this to work. All right. Anyway, so he talks about the fact that he did like to throw the ball and get an early lead, as we know, and that was his game plan there and that. So let's see if we can get this bite up. We'll try it. It's not going to let us do it. Anyway, the bottom line is he did like to try to get a lead. And then run the ball in the second half. And I talked about those games, and you saw him, Franz, when he would get the lead, and then he would actually run the ball a whole bunch of times. And you saw Eric Gregg get the ball a whole bunch of times. And his strategy was try to get up on people early and throw it and then run it. So although his numbers looked like they were balanced. And they were in the year at the end of the year.
Get back to Swamp Kings, I think I was impressed.
Right, therefore, you already had one spot. That's enough. Anyway, the fact is that he had a plan. Well, the first was to find a soft spot and throw the bomb and get up on the team early, and then try to control the game. That's kind of how I saw it, Franz. And you?
Well, Spurrier did run heavy in the second half. What I was talking about, Spurrier always defined an effective running game as it's 3rd and 1. Can you convert? He never was so concerned about averaging like 6 yards a carry or 12 yards, some of these gaudy numbers that some people put up. His idea was this: if you run the ball on 3rd and 2, do you get it? If it's 2nd and goal from the 2 and you run, does your guy get in? And that's basically what I was talking about the other night, is that you've got to be effective when, particularly against a team like Georgia that doesn't give you a lot of 3rd and shorts, that if you run the ball, you have got to be effective. You've got to be able to convert it on there, because Georgia doesn't give a lot of second chances.
All right, get that bite now, Franz, just to make sure it's accurate. Let me let you play it right. Let's do your sense.
Game coaching and playing.
Had a conversation last night with a colleague about how you beat Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, you got to run the football against Georgia. I don't know that I believe that. I think you got to run the ball against everybody. But to me, what your teams did was you loved to throw the ball on first down a lot. And it worked out really well when you did that. And to me, it seems like the mentality of trying to go beat Georgia physically is not the way to go. You got a good passing team. Chuck it. Put it over their heads. You always said run around them, throw it over their heads. Would that work good for Billy Napier?
I think you have to do both. I've always believed there's a good play for every defense, and there's a good defense for every play. So as a coach, offensive coach, you're trying to get the best play on against the defense, whether it be a run or a pass. And, of course, the defense is trying to have the best defensive call they have. So it does come down to coaching a lot. That sometimes we'd run a play and I said, that play doesn't have a chance. That was a bad call. So what we did, we allowed the quarterback to audible a lot. Shane and Danny and Terry Dean and Rex and Jesse and all those guys, if a play didn't have a chance, we tried to check to one that did. And we probably audible at the line of scrimmage more than most any team in the country back in those days. Sometimes it's awfully loud, so you have to use hand signals and so forth. But again, run, pass, we did both. I think Eric Rat ran the ball 35 times that rainy day way back 30 years ago, 93 game. And that was key probably to winning that game. But I just always believe you need to do both. If the other team's got 8, 9 guys on the line of scrimmage, you better be able to pass. So, and if they're defending with 8 or 9 guys, you better be able to run. Simple as that.
Seems to me, Steve, when I saw every one of your games back then, you usually try to light it up the first half, get ahead of the game, and then you would really resort to a running game if you were up by 2, 3 touchdowns in the second half. I remember seeing Eric Rett take handoff after handoff after handoff in the second half, and you beat teams that way. And talk about how, although your run-pass ratio was balanced, if you took first half and the second half, way more passes in the first half.
Yeah, we did try to come out fast a lot of games. Sun Tzu, his book In the Art of War, he said if you're in a fight, can't mediate or discuss it any further. He said, hit first, hit hard, and hit often. So I remember one year Georgia had the wrestler who had played there. What was his name? Remember who I talked about?
Ric Flair? Was it Ric Flair? No, Florida. No. Oh, shoot. I can't think of that. Anyway, I know you're talking about.
Last name's not Golden or something. But anyway, he gave the pep talk to the Georgia team for the game. And they come roaring out for the game and everything. And we had them 21-0 in the first quarter. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was 98 or 99, 98, I want to say. And somebody asked him, what happened to that pep talk? And he said, oh, damn, Gators came out and hit us hard, hit us fast. And we were down 21-0 before we knew what was going on.
Okay, the name we could come up with was Goldberg. That was a name, and everybody remembers that. Let's bring the coach in here and join this discussion. Franz, go ahead and respond to what you heard Spurrier say there.
Well, he's right that, he did audible a lot. But like I said, the one thing that he had was he had teams that rarely got stuffed on third and short. Rarely. And he wasn't afraid, everybody thinks that he was this pass maniac, pass happy maniac. And he did throw the ball. He did revolutionize the SEC by throwing the ball around the ball yard and spreading it out. And this is one of the things that I think goes underrated so much about Steve Spurrier was the fact that lots of teams threw the ball and had one receiver. Occasionally you'd find one that would have two. Florida would have 3 and 4 and 5 receivers. I look at that 96 team and the 97 teams and look at all the receivers, some of whom only caught like 9 or 10 passes that year, but went on the next year to have great careers. And he always had a lot of guys that could catch the ball. He was not afraid to spread the ball around. And if you were in the game as a receiver, there was a good chance you would get the ball if you were open. And I think he revolutionized that. I think he's one of the things that's underrated about him is how he revolutionized the game by using multiple receivers. Eric Rett, for example, people don't realize this is a guy, not only is the 4,103 yards the number one running back as far as yards in Florida history, the guy also caught 140 passes in his career. I mean, so Steve spread the ball around and he wasn't afraid. For example, they ran that Trey counter any play in any yardage situation. But yeah, he threw more in the first half than he did in the second half. In the second half, he liked being able to grind it out, keep the ball away from you, and humiliate you because you make it so you couldn't possibly come back. And one of the, I'll never forget being up in Athens and hearing him say, well, we always wondered what it'd be like to hang half 100 on them. He ran a reverse at the goal line in that game.
He also had a lot of players that weren't starters in the game late on, too. So let's say good evening to Coach Meadows, though. Let him join the conversation. Coach Meadows, I know you weren't here with us at that time, but that game in Athens was remarkable. And by the way, friends, I've asked Steve this question several times before, and he's never really said it's true or not. Ray Graves told me before he died that when he beat him, 52-27, the Spurrier called him after the game and said, Coach, we hung 50 on him for you. And I asked Steve that years. Yeah, he said that we hung 50. Well, that was a different game. This is a game in Athens. And so he said, at first he sort of semi-denied. Well, I don't know if I said it or not. Last night I asked him a question again. He said, well, I may have said that. I may have said that. But, yeah. So, Lauren, we've had this discussion a while now. And like someone said to me, that you can't rely on the past to win a game for you in the present. And Steve Spurrier is not coaching this game. I get all that. It's true. But sometimes you need to be reminded at what one of the most remarkable shifts in what you call it, in fortunes, I guess, about a program. A guy comes out of a program and wins 11 out of 12 games after being told you can't do it. That, to me, Lauren and Franz, is a remarkable story.
Yeah, I mean they broke the mold when they walked Steve Spurrier out. I mean they broke the mold, and you're talking about somebody who revolutionized the game of college football, made a habit of basically sticking it to his rivals when they needed it, and he's one of the greats, and I don't think the dominance over Georgia will never be duplicated. And like I said, I mean they broke the mold when they brought Spurrier out. And even when Georgia would be favored at times, he would, like he always said, they always got all those 5 stars. But, he just, if you talk to guys that played for him, he just had a way of, a lot of times when you're coaching, it's about your messaging, how you get your players to practice, to believe in your system. And anybody that played for Spurrier during his tenure just always felt like they had everything they needed to go win a football game, particularly in big games against Georgia and others. So, it just speaks to the overall body of work and the program that Spurrier, implemented when he was the coach here in Florida.
Yeah. Franz, we heard Ben say, Troupe earlier saying that he never heard Steve Spurrier use the word win. It was preparation. Mm-hmm. They felt like if he prepared right, they would win the game. And, of course, Ben had 4 years where he never lost to Georgia.
Well, we forget that you take that era from Ron Zook won 2 out of 3. And the only one he lost was 5 days after he'd been fired. And they still almost won, and they could have won that ball game with a break or two. But 11-1 for Spurrier, 2-1 for Zook, and 5-1 for Urban. It's really, really hard to beat 18-3, particularly when when Spurrier came, Florida fans always expected the worst. People would say, we could have a 3-touchdown lead on Georgia and we would find a way to blow it in the fourth quarter. Now, never happened that bad, but that was the perception, was that the Gators would find a way to lose to Georgia. Mm-hmm. And Spurrier did it, and Spurrier just made Georgia his priority. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people said, well, goodness, why did he make Georgia's priority and not FSU?
Because he got beat his senior year by him. He lost that game his senior year. That was what Barney talked about in an interview this week about. He finally admitted that was the thing that drove him nuts, losing that game, because they were really good that year. And he played horrible the second half, and that was his incentive. And he said, well, I don't know if I even score by winning 11 out of 12. I said, Coach, believe me, you even the score, okay? You took care of that deal.
Well, here's the thing that he did, coming there and prioritizing Georgia, and people don't realize that, is you could beat FSU, but if you did not win the SEC, it wouldn't have mattered if you beat Florida State. You wouldn't make the BCS national championship game. That's what we had back in those days. And you had to win your conference first. And so Spurrier saw that the road to the conference championship game ran through Athens, and he made them the priority. And
true.
It certainly paid off, because you win the SEC, maybe you can lose to Florida State, but win the SEC. Look what happened in 1996. We lost to Florida State in Tallahassee, but we got to play them again because we won the SEC, got to play them again in the national championship game.
Right. Yeah, Ben, Ben also, well, let me get to Lauren. Lauren, we're getting around to that time where people are starting to have to make choices. A little fairy dust has been sprinkled around now. We all know Florida's better. Even some of the national commentators are saying, well, this is a dangerous Florida team, things like that. I read your piece tonight, very good, one of your better pieces on your breaking down the comparison between Florida and Georgia, and you ended up, as I did, picking Georgia. How bad did you want to pick Florida? We lost you, Ben. Lost you, Ben.
That's Lauren.
Lauren, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You got me?
Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
Okay. I'm sorry. You've known me for quite some time, so you know how much I fancy the Gators. But
Yeah.
like I said, I think right now, I mean, as Florida has improved, and that's what happens over the course of the season. Teams get better, and I think they've learned from the two losses where I think they kind of got their lunch money took a little bit. So I think they've kind of buckled up in some situations and got a little better. But I think right now, just if you look at things, Georgia's just a better football team. I think Florida will play well. I think just like last year, they'll take the game into the fourth quarter and make it interesting. But from what I know about the game and just looking at the Florida secondary has been disappointing in some ways, and I think that Georgia's strength is in guys like Lab McConkey and Dominique Lovett and Ra and those guys, and even Oscar Delp is a sound tight end. And I just, if I saw more from Florida's back end, I think I would have been a little bit more in tune to pick the upset. But, I was expecting a guy like Jason Marshall to be able to take a guy like Dominic Lovett or Lab McConkey and say, you get nothing today. And it just hasn't happened. And I think that's the biggest thing. If Florida's secondary was a little better, I think I would have been a little bit more inclined to play the upset. But I just haven't seen the consistency on defense the last 4 weeks that I would have liked to see.
Fair enough. Franz, I know you know this is a lot of people really want to have the courage to say, I'm picking the upset. You're this far away, but you can't quite pull the trigger. And I get it. I'm one of them. But like I said earlier in the show, talking to Ben, you have to start by believing you can win before you can win. When's going to come the day when Florida believes it can win again against Georgia? Are we all there yet? I don't know. Like Ben Troupe said, you just can't think it. You got to believe it. That's a hard one. And Franz, you wrote about the Tugboat quality, but you got to believe, etc. When is Florida going to be able to believe it can beat Georgia, Franz?
Well, it's even if you lose this year, you got to go into that game believing you can win. Believing you can win.
Not believing you can win, believing you will win. That's the difference in the two.
Well, but you got to believe you can before you believe you will. And I think Florida is probably in that halfway stage between can and will. I think they've got a good enough team to scare the bejabbers out of Georgia. South Carolina played them within 10 with that bad defense. And with an offensive line that can't block anything. Auburn, with no passing game, almost beat them. And could have beaten them if they had a quarterback that could throw a 2-inch pass accurately. They probably do win that ball game. So I believe that Georgia is vulnerable. But here's the problem. Georgia has a margin of error like this. Florida's got a margin of error like this. And I think we're going to see early on. If the Gators come out and have 2 or 3 false starts in the first quarter, it's going to be a long, hard afternoon. If the Gators come out and they've cleaned that up and they play, Billy talks about a clean football game. If the Gators can play a clean football game, this could be white knuckles. I still think Georgia has all the advantages. And I'll go back to something that I wrote earlier in the week. The 22 guys that Georgia puts out and the 22 guys that Florida puts out on the first team, I don't know that there's a tremendous amount of difference in the talent level. But Georgia's next 22, which will rotate into the game because they're going to play 40-something guys, just like Florida will, are better than Florida's next 22. And their depth, when they got to rotate, for example, a left tackle out, then the guy that's going to come in and play left tackle is pretty darn good. Better than the guy that Florida, if Florida has to rotate Austin Barber out, better than that guy, And that's where I think the game's going. I think that's going to be the difference in the ball game. And I think it's going to come down to a personnel bit. But I'll throw this in. If the Gators play it clean, there's always a chance. But that's what sexy, because you can't go in there like you did at Kentucky. You can't go in there like you did at Utah and give yards to a team that has a defense that eats you up. You just can't give them yards. You can't give them points. I look back at that dadgum Utah game when they're down 14-3. They got a chance to cut it to 14-10, and they screw it up and end up getting a blocked field goal. You can't leave points on the board. On the floor. You got to put them on the scoreboard.
All right. Well, close your eyes. I'll give you guys a chance to unburden yourselves. And if you think Florida will win the football game, while you're closing your eyes, I want to see your hand go up like this. Nobody can peek until we get to the end. If you think Florida will win the football game over Georgia, raise your hand starting in 30 seconds now.
Okay, what's my choices here?
Raise your hand or don't.
What, if I think Florida is going to win?
Yes. Raise your hand if you think they will. And don't raise it if you think they won't. Giving you a chance here if you want to bail yourself out. For those of you who have not been on the Gator bandwagon, don't come around here crying to try to get on it, all right, if they beat you. I don't want to hear about it, all right? So you got your chance right now. Raise your hand if you think Florida will beat Georgia. Is anybody going to raise their hand? In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Nobody's got their hand up. We're non-believers.
It's not going to happen.
We're all a bunch of heathens is what we are.
Well, like I said, Franz brings up a lot of good points. And like I said, it just, they're better than us at just some key positions. Their safeties are better than us. Javon Bullard and Malachi Starks are better than Miguel Mitchell and Castell. They're just better. There's certain positions that are important in the game of football over the long haul that just now I will say that maybe Kingsley Agwakin is the key to that offensive line and steadying things up and allowing them to run the football. But I just think that when you look at the rosters as a whole, and like Fran said, once you get into the too deep a little bit, it just but like I said earlier in the week, they should have picked off Stetson Bennett 5 times last year. They picked him off twice. I think if they get 2 to 3 interceptions this weekend, Florida could win the football game. So, there's a lot of variables. And even in my article, I kind of ended it saying that's why they play the games. You don't play the game on paper. You get on the field and that 100 yards and that 53 in the third and, see what happens.
What's that old saying? If and buts were candy and nuts, what's that saying? You guys know that.
Every day be like Christmas.
There you go.
Let me tell you guys something that I know. This is a fact. This is not a speculation thing. This is a fact because I got it from a source that is absolutely impeccable and close like this to the Georgia program. They were so concerned about their running game that in the week before he got injured, they had Brock Bowers. They were transforming Brock Bowers into their starting tailback. Now, people forget that he was a high school tailback and a great one. But can you imagine? What was the guy, Christian Okoye? They called him the Nigerian Nightmare,
right.
who was like 6'5" and about 270, something like that. And people just bounced off of him. That's the way what happens when Brock Bowers runs in the secondary, people just bounce off of him. And they had, for Georgia to have been doing this, tells me they have concerns that they can run the football in the month of November. And that's going to be a key. Can the Gators, Caleb Banks and Cam Jackson, they got to show up with testicles like this tomorrow. I mean, Saturday. They got to be. They've got to be.
About that one, I'm not sure about that, Big Rabbit.
They better be.
That's cancerous.
Yeah.
They better be grown men.
Yeah.
You know, and if they aren't grown men, then Georgia's going to run the ball and control the football. Florida has got to be able to make Georgia one-dimensional, and then it's going to be a question, as Lauren said, about those young safeties. If you make them one-dimensional, which is the plan, can your safeties then, pick up the slack? Because I think Florida's corners can cover their wide receivers, but you worry about what goes on in the middle of the field, and that's where the safeties have to come in and play.
All right, speaking of grown, excuse me, go ahead, finish your thought.
This is where I think if there's maybe an advantage to the Gators, Arliss Boardingham in the middle of the field, if he has a big game, Florida may be onto something, but he's going to have one, because if you can't get the ball in the middle of the field to occupy those safeties are going to stuff your running game, and they're going to be very disruptive.
All right, this grown man's got to go to bed. I have Urban Meyer interview tomorrow morning. I'll look forward to that. Don't forget, check it out tomorrow. Great job, Franz. Great job, Lauren. Great job, Ben, earlier tonight. I can't wait for the game on Saturday to start. Let's play 2. It's a beautiful day. Guys, have a good night.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Lauren Meadows and Franz Beard bringing you their thoughts about the game on Saturday. I'm going to wrap this up with a word from our friends at Renstar, who we really appreciate. Been great supporters of ours for years. They do great work in our community, and they have a terrific facility, which helps us have better health. They have a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility located in downtown Ocala. They bring cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, dementia, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, all those things happen in our community. Since their inception in 1998, Renstar has had over 700 clinical trials. You might want to check them out. You can be a part of them if you'd like. You can go to renstar.net, find out the details. In some cases, compensation will be given for time and travel. So check them out. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. On behalf of my sponsors tonight and our guests, as our usual Thursday night Blue Buds show, Ben Troupe, Franz Beard, Lauren Meadows, I am Buddy Martin. Hope you have a good night and a really good weekend. It's Florida, Georgia. Something's going to happen, folks. Stay tuned.